when I'm teaching that seminar, that's a big part. It's like a big block of the first day is preempting everything else with this part of the practice. It's like the foundation building blocks, the alphabet before we create words, before we create sentences or poetry, whatever movement ends up being, right? And so, if you don't know A, it's kind of hard to spell a lot of things, right? And so your body will make up a new word, a compensation, but it's not the same thing. It's a new word. It's a new movement. And so a big thing we're talking about with this, and it's not purely just to feel good. It is about a better understanding of self.
Welcome to Barbell Shrugged. I'm Mike Bledsoe here with Doug Larson and Alex Macklin.
Hey.
We're in Austin, Texas, hanging out at Onnit Academy, and we are here with Onnit's Chief Fitness Officer, Mr. John Wolf.
Chief Fitness Officer. That's awesome.
What a title.
I know, right? CFO. Whole new meaning. Whole new meaning.
It's confusing. People send him like financial shit, and he's like, I have no idea. I don't know. What I'm looking at.
Apparently, you don't know what I do. So what's wrong, motherfucker?
So what do you do as the Chief Fitness Officer?
Mostly, I just am thankful that I have an awesome gig at an awesome company, but it's actually a really unique deal, right? So say for someone to do a lot of the things that I get to do here, you'd probably be working at somewhere like Nike or one of these big apparel brands. They might have a division, but here it's kind of cool because I have a seat at the C-level exec table where, Onnit's mission is total human optimization. We do a lot of different things, and I get to oversee everything that's fitness related, from fitness product development, education, the gym here where we're at, where there's all these amazing people doing amazing things every day. And it's been a great pleasure to kind of guide this, because when I got here, the fitness department was still pretty new. And, there's a lot of exciting things coming up.
Yeah. Last summer we started hanging out, and I knew that there was some pretty cool stuff. And actually, we had hung out with Aubrey, and he had showed us some of we did maces with him one day, I think is what it was.
We did. Like, before this was a thing, because this gym was fucking dope, when you guys had, like, just one small room. Now you guys have, like, 3 or 4 different rooms.
There's, like, a studio,
You got kickboxing in there. You got the 10th Planet Jiu-Jitsu in the other room. You got, like, the full gym set up in here. We were here years ago when it was just, like, one small room, like a fourth the size of this, and you had some you had some maces and some clubs in the corner and some battle ropes and one small mat, and now it's, like, expanded to this big thing. So,
it's funny. That is actually that room right there, that classroom used to be that room, and it was that concrete floor with the little section of jiu-jitsu mats and then a crossover cable machine. It was like very eclectic, right? So in that one room, everything that kind of expanded into this big space was somewhat represented or tried to be at that point in time.
It was obvious even back then that what you guys were doing was very unique, and it wasn't like any gym that I had ever gone to. I mean, certainly you have dumbbells over there, and you got barbells, and you got basic strength conditioning equipment that everyone seems to have. But then you guys have a lot of other very unique things, and the style of training here is very different. So, like, from your perspective, like, what is like the style or philosophy that is different here at Onnit?
It was really great getting back to landing this gig, right? So I had this fitness studio in California, and we had a very eclectic mix, like inclusive philosophy, right? So I would bring in all these educators, and then those educators would eventually influence my perspective on what a complete system of training would look like and feel like, because I don't think good information displaces good information. If you find something that's really powerful, you're kind of it's your responsibility to learn how to integrate it into whatever your current framework is. Mm-hmm. And when I started the relationship with Onnit, what I found is that's exactly what their philosophy is. Total human optimization means how do you use all the good information and all the good methodology that's available in the marketplace to make yourself a better human being in some way, shape, or form.
Uh-oh.
We got in trouble, John.
Get that mic right in the mouth. Right there.
Man. If anyone knows how to place a mic, it's Doug.
Man, it's like right in my mouth now, which I don't know if I'm comfortable with, but it's Well, I'll deal with it for you, Doug. Keep winking at me, though. It kind of makes me uncomfortable, you know?
No. I know you pretty well, John. You don't get uncomfortable by extended eye contact or extra long hugs.
Okay, you caught me. But this is the first time in public with you guys. I'm trying to play coy. So when I got here, the fact that philosophy that I already had put in place was embraced and encouraged was really what drove the decision to get out here and really, go all in as part of this community and part of this company. So, I got here, they're already doing a lot of different stuff. We were acquiring Black Swan Yoga. We already sold clubs, maces, kettlebells, sandbags, battle ropes. And the task that I was given was like, well, create a system that incorporates all of these things in something that was sound. It's principle based,
right?
And since then, we continue to bring in subject matter experts that continue to influence our perspective. So the education system, the philosophies here are a living body of work. And just like a lot of the things that I've been able to get exposed to through my relationship with you guys continues to influence many of the interactions I have with the coaches that I have, because it's my job, to nurture those individuals as human beings through this total human optimization philosophy, and movement's just part of it. Training's just part of it. So it's kind of it's a big task. It's a big task to always be able to evolve to the next step and celebrate everything that is conventional, everything that is in the functional fitness space. We don't think anything's wrong. We just look at, well, how could we bring something that complements it? How can we do something that, bring something to the table that's new but brings value at the same time.
Yeah. I like how you don't throw away ideas. You just try to bring it all together and see, okay, how can this all work together to make you better?
Yeah.
And the unconventional piece has been really interesting because I started working with some of the tools last year. Last summer I started working with the clubs and Mesa specifically, and I found that it highlighted a lot of gaps I had in my own movement practice, and I noticed that a lot of the stuff I was using was actually very healing for my body, shoulders, hips, things that I had done a lot of repetitive movement in the sagittal plane with weightlifting and CrossFit, and then adding clubs and maces to the mix in addition to has been really great for me. Yeah. So I'm not snatching, what I used to snatch, but I'm living a very healthy lifestyle at this point. And I see where, had I adopted a lot of these things earlier, I could have trained longer. I could have been competing longer.
And that's the key. Is if you look at different different systems or different practices in the fitness realm, say bodybuilding, is there something wrong with bodybuilding inherently? Well, no. It's just aesthetically driven. If you're looking at CrossFit, it's very work oriented, it's measured work, right? So it's just different goals, different outcomes, but the fact of the matter is no matter what we invest in, there's some level of sacrifice if we focus solely on one outcome. Because like when we're at the mastermind with Daniel talking about, well, as human beings, we're often looking at one goal and at the exclusion of something that's equally important, and we need to be able to look at, well, you have this thought, but there's the counter thought is just as important, and you need to be able to remove yourself from one perspective, take a higher point of view, and incorporate both. And so for us, that's what we look at. Our unconventional movement system is about longevity and performance. So we think that if you have the ability to evolve as an athlete or as a fitness enthusiast over a long period of time without injury, without setback, you're going to gain on the performance side.
Absolutely.
So exactly what you're saying there.
Yeah, the person who can stay in the game the longest, that's who's going to be the most fit,
Yeah, and so we have a lot of these NFL athletes coming in because we brought this really dynamic, amazing young coach in, and he has a stable like Earl Thomas, Von Miller, top tier NFL athletes coming in. We're exposing them to a lot of this stuff, and they're like, man, this is crazy, especially with the veterans. They're not trying to move as much weight as they were. They just want to stay in the game.
Stay in the game.
And so he's always hear him talking. He's like, hey, the best ability is availability, because it doesn't matter if you got a contract. If you can't play, you ain't making money.
Yeah.
And for a lot of people, they think, they want to be an athlete, but they're not making money that way, and they're sacrificing their quality of life for something that,
should enhance your quality of life.
That's it, man.
Yeah.
Yeah, we were talking to Daryl Christian recently. He trains a lot of UFC fighters, and he was talking about how a lot of the big names that we know didn't make as much money as the guys who were able to fight longer.
Yeah.
Some guys did a really good job and have done a really good job of fighting for a long time, and their strategy was a little more around training, was more intelligent, more well-rounded, and just more thought out, whereas some other guys just like flash in the pan. They had a big name because they got the title or whatever, but they weren't able to fight for a long time. So you look at how much money one athlete made versus another, you'd be shocked. It's like some guys you didn't really hear much from. They kind of like just rode in the middle for a long time. Mm-hmm. They made a lot more money. So if we're looking at athletics as a career, that's just another way of viewing that.
Yeah, and so a lot of the things that we were doing, becoming more present and more in a variety of different things, like Paleo Effects is in town, and now we've been present there for a couple of years, so we're seeing a lot more people more warm and receptive to what we're talking about, because I think a lot of people think, well, everything could be a flash in the pan. Doesn't really matter. So the test of time really validates things. And so we're going out to these conventions like the CSCCA, this strength coaches convention, this collegiate strength coaches convention, and the same thing happened. Year after year, they're starting to see us, and now we're talking about clubs and maces as in-season training. Mm-hmm. So sub-maximal loads, triplanar movement, you're keeping the nervous system very active, and that neuroplasticity high for their ability to stay reactive and responsive to the dynamic sphere of whatever the sport demands, whatever the position demands.
By triplanar?
Triplanar. So
can you explain in a way that for people who are listening and not watching?
Yeah. So it's really, I think people look at movement and. We all see like anatomical man, and sagittal plane and coronal. Like you have this person bisected in these planes, and people are like, well, that's a sagittal plane dominant movement. Or like, well, movement happens in all the planes.
Yeah.
You're either stabilizing or moving through those planes, one or the other, or all of the above. But there's a dominant factor. So like CrossFit is primarily sagittal planes. It's very up and down, forward and back, maybe a little bit, and so. The system that I was taught, this kind of concept that's borrowed from mechanical engineering called the 6 degrees of freedom. And so it kind of borrowed that in aeronautical terminology to kind of explain the potential for more movement. And I thought it was really intelligent, but then it was still overly complex. So if we I just look at the axes of the primary axes of movement, these 3 axes. So the primary one axis is up and down, vertical axis. So what is that? It's represented by your spine when you're upright. So you could either move along that axis. So this is like translation, or even like transporting yourself up and down that line is the way we kind of explain. So it's like a squat, a jump, a moving up and down, right? But in every one of these axes, we can also interact with it through rotation. So along that same axis, I can rotate. Right? Mm-hmm. And it's very valid and important because along each of these axes, we're looking at how the body can or can't move around these axes, or primarily in rotation, we're finding that a lot of dysfunction is hiding in rotation.
Yeah.
And so even if we can, use prime movers to move external load, it's just those little details. Like wherever I'm looking at you, if there's an unwarranted, unwanted rotation happening in your body, I'm going to challenge that rotation. And it doesn't even matter. It doesn't matter where it's at. If it's not efficient use of the body, then I'm going to take it away and reduce the load, maybe challenge you structurally, and replug that new awareness into the gross motor pattern you had before, and hope to see an improvement in efficiency or even output.
You have an example of this?
Could be just about anything, right? So like throwing mechanics might be one. We do club work. There's one very dynamic exercise called a mill. So the body, you swing the club across the body and out, and then there's a rotation of the elbow here.
Oh, yeah.
And so if that elbow doesn't rotate over, or even if we can look at patterning sequentially from the ground up, so respecting that kinetic change. So if the foot doesn't turn over and transfer force into the ground, looking foot, toe, ankle, knee, hip, and then torso, then we can look at the club as something that amplifies whenever that timing is off, because that lever extends, and then all of a sudden whatever is loose, wherever there's not a clear transfer energy, all of a sudden you see, whoa, there's a wonkiness
Gets
right
loud.
there.
Right.
It gets loud.
It's real loud.
Amplifies it. Boom.
Yeah.
And so, we're looking at using a lot of these unconventional tools, and it's hard to do anything along that rotation with a traditional loaded implement, right?
Yeah. And one of the things we were talking about right before the show is one of the when I used to think about rotation as a core thing, like, oh, we're going to rotate. You got to be able to turn your whole body. But then after working with the clubs specifically, I was like, oh, I'm getting rotation at my shoulder. I'm getting loaded rotation at the shoulder. Whereas before it was either like I was just pressing, pulling, up or down, or back and front.
Uh-huh.
And then I get the clubs and I'm loaded through this rotational movement. I go, oh, this is interesting.
Yeah.
So, and then additionally the wrists.
Man, that's a big
And then the grip with
deficiency
the
for a lot of
fingers.
people.
And then, so for so long, I've been gripping barbells, kettlebells, pull-up bars, and I have a fixed finger hold.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm gripping the same thing that's the same diameter over and over again, and just a straight up and down. I'm like pulling straight back on it. And when I had the clubs, it was pulling my wrist in different directions, and my fingers were having to adjust. So my pinky might have to reach a little bit harder, or vice versa, as I was moving through these planes.
Yeah, and that's the thing is like the lack of efficiency becomes apparent. Then you have to deduce where that lack of efficiency is coming from. Is it coming from the ground? And is there a lack of connection there, or is it as far distal as the hand and the implement in the hand?
Yeah.
It's kind of interesting, and I think a lot of people, for us, we don't really care what the application is. Like, we're not overly attached. So, like, I love working with CrossFit athletes, with power lifters, with team sport athletes. It doesn't really matter to us because good movement is good movement. It transfers no matter where you apply it, and lack of good movement has a predictable outcome.
It's going to show up.
Yeah. These amazing athletes, they're not the best movers, but
They're the best compensators.
They're amazing compensators, right? They have like no ankle dorsiflexion, and yet they're out there doing things that are like mind blowing, for us to witness. And then we just might work on one little thing, like the biggest block for their performance and for their longevity, and one thing can change everything, right? And so for us, we're like, say if we work with a CrossFit athlete and we're like, well, that shoulder doesn't rotate, like you're talking about, what happens if I just help that shoulder rotate? And I don't need to be an expert in what they're doing specifically, because they have skill coaches that are going to be much better at what they're doing, Olympic lifting, like, Coach Bergner or something like that. I'm never going to argue with Coach Bergner. I'm just going to be like, well, Coach, what is it you see there? And then I might come to a conclusion is like, well, I have a toolkit where I can kind of help coaches, athletes become better athletes, and then give them right back to their skill coach.
Yeah, the specificity. Yeah,
and, get out of stay in my lane, and I think that, it's a really fun way to be a coach that way, and cool, because I'm always like you guys, I'm always learning more, right? Because I'm working with this athlete and he's in this sport or this movement practice, this is the venue that he or she excels at or operates in, and I just do the things that we do here, and then we hand them right back to the person that's in charge of their performance, their skill development.
Yeah.
So we've been alluding to unconventional training and unconventional tools. Can you run us through the tools that you're using that aren't commonly found in other gyms?
Yeah, definitely. So I guess the biggest thing when I took that task of working here, the first thing was that I was tasked to create a foundational body of work that encompassed a lot of the tools that Onnit had become known for, or that we offer. And so it was like 2 days to like even conceptualize what that would look like, because it was a big task. And so it incorporates our foundational course, incorporates open chain mobility work, which is just like joint circles. If you see like Max Shank's stuff, a lot of his stuff is open chain joint circles. Then he does a lot of ground-based stuff. So the 5-minute flow stuff, I know you guys had him on the show. I love Max's work. And he keeps things really non-dogmatic and allows you to express your own movement. And that's really important, I think. And it's a big part of what we do. So that's the the lead in, because if those two things will show a lot of what's going to happen later on, and we can already point them out and reinforce, like, okay, this is going to mean you're going to have a hard time here, 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 and here.
One
right?
of the things, you actually showed me some of that flow stuff before I met Max, and I remember you said something at some point that really stuck out to me, and I've used it in my own coaching, which is, as you're going through that, make note of what's happening left to right.
Yeah.
You know, as you're doing the flow stuff, I could just be rolling my shoulders. And I think a lot of people just do shoulder rolls or something like that, or they're rotating something, but they're not really thinking about it. But if while you're doing that, you bring your awareness into those joints, and you go, you know what? There is a difference between my right and left shoulder. And having that awareness can change, like, oh, I need to be, and then I'm like, keep on checking in. This is stronger when here or there, or this has more balance, and that's been really helpful for me. And me coaching other people, I don't know how many times I passed that got through me to them, and I've had athletes walk up to me afterwards and was like, holy shit. Like, I didn't notice these 5 things.
Yeah.
It's huge.
It's a conscious movement practice, right? So when I'm teaching that seminar, that's a big part. It's like a big block of the first day is preempting everything else with this part of the practice. It's like the foundation building blocks, the alphabet before we create words, before we create sentences or poetry, whatever movement ends up being, right? And so, you know, if you don't know A, it's kind of hard to spell a lot of things, right? And so your body will make up a new word, a compensation, but it's not the same thing. It's a new word. It's a new movement. And so a big thing we're talking about with this, and it's not purely just to feel good. It is about a better understanding of self. I kind of tell everybody it's your daily check-in. And so, like, for you, if you're in a committed relationship, which I know a lot of us are, when you get home, if you're like, hey, like, this is how most people treat their body. Where's my dinner? It's time to lift. Where's my dinner? How come you're not picking this shit up? You know, and this stupid knee gets in my way every time I want to do something fun. My fucking shoulder, you know, and this is the dialogue in people's heads.
Yeah.
But then when we're moving through this in this conscious practice, I'm telling people, like, well, you could have that approach, but just imagine how that is, because your spouse for life is your body. Like, your consciousness and your body, we kind of separate those things in our modern culture. So the dialogue's coming from here, but you're abusing your relationship with yourself. You would
use
do
that analogy? Because you should.
all the time.
People.
so then when we do this movement practice, I need you to reprogram your dialogue with your body. So it's like, hey, how are you feeling today? Like, when you show up home from work, hey, if the dinner is not ready,
honey?
How was your day, honey? Oh, you know, but you don't know until you listen.
Yeah.
And so this is what you're talking about, right? You move, you're asking a question, and then you listen. You're like, oh, shit, you know, you're not feeling so hot right there. You don't really have that going on. Hey, what can I do to help this situation be better?
Right.
And then I can ask for the work or the whatever else we want as an outcome, right? Or maybe today's not the right day to ask for shit. You know, maybe we just pay it in. We accumulate positive, you know, brownie points.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And we assess that every day through this practice, and that's an important part of the system. And then we can get into all the cool stuff everybody wants to do. So we go from that to setting a foundation of body weight, like gross motor patterns, hinge, squat, push, pull. Mm-hmm. And then we apply that to a lot of different tools. And we understand that everything has to be contextual. So the tool will change your hinge pattern because you're interacting with something that is like a barbell is no longer the same as a sandbag, is the same as a kettlebell, same as a club.
That's what I noticed. I just went to the club certification, and just swinging the club vastly different than swinging a kettlebell. I think I've gotten really comfortable with that single implement, and just having a different implement's been really, really great.
Yeah.
Well, how do you choose the appropriate tool? Like, I mean,
well, that's kind of fun too, because we're talking. Well, we're hosting this amazing seminar. We have all these clinicians in the house, and I think for a lot of people in the fitness arena, it's largely an experiential model of delivering. So, like, people are consumers, so they have to want to do shit.
Yeah.
and you have to provide an experience that inspires them to continue wanting to do more shit. And so a big thing is one, what fires people up. I might train with clubs and maces and all this stuff, but if someone wants to lift a barbell, fuck yeah, let's lift barbells. Because I don't care what the tool is. Good movement's good movement, and if I have a strong principle-based framework, I can apply it to a rock or a stick. I don't care. We train with anything and everything or nothing. And so what does that person attach value to? And then from there, we can open the door to more opportunities, more novel experiences, and show the value of those things, but from this position of trust, because I met them where they're at.
Yeah, exactly. You got to meet them where they're at, like to get your foot in the door. And then you'll be like, hey, how about we try this little tool over here? And then they check it out. I'm like, oh, this is really cool. Yeah.
So that's a very mature perspective that a lot of people don't get until they've been training people for a long time. Do you feel like you've always kind of been like that, or how long did it take you to develop that framework?
Man, a lot of this mobility stuff, I was like, oh, I was so into this. It makes me feel so good because I was injured inherently. And a lot of people that I would attract through proliferating that information were people that either are injured or were injured and don't want to continue experiencing what that's like. And so it was really easy to work with those people. But then I'd get a lot of people like, do we have to do all what? They're kind of like the people who just like, oh, okay, whatever.
The 24-year-old that hasn't been fucked up yet.
Yeah, I mean, he just wants Aaron to go load up 400 pounds.
How's this gonna make me swole?
Exactly.
I'm like, bro, you got to go down the street, But no, no. But what would happen inherently was, I didn't hit critical mass. I didn't have the level of authority, and now it's just, for me, that part is a non-negotiable. Everything else is I'll meet you where you're at, but as far as building that conscious movement practice, that's the non-negotiable. If you want to work with me, this is where we are. This is where we stay. Always that's part of the practice. But back in the day, it was like so frustrating to have people come in and like, well, do we have to do this mobility shit? What the fuck is this?
Yeah, what the fuck is this?
And I'm like, no. We don't have to.
But you can leave.
No. I'll do what you want to do. I'll straight whoop your ass for an hour straight,
Yeah.
The problem was that people would be like, but they come back. They're like,
Make them pay.
Can we do the mobility stuff now? Now, what?
Sometimes it takes that, though, You got to break them before they want to listen.
Yeah, and now I'm so thankful. I think that the industry's changed a lot, and people are starting to value skill development as part of this process where they like, I want to do cool shit because Instagram, YouTube. And so like a lot of times it's kind of frustrating. Now the problem is on the opposite side. Like, I want to do this cool thing. I'm like, bro, your wrist doesn't flex more than it doesn't extend more than this, and you want to do a handstand, And so we got a lot of work to do. But again, now it's like holding people back from doing things that are too crazy and too kind of far out there. But no, it's been a long journey. And I think what I had to come to terms with was realizing it's okay if you're not interested, because there's other people that are happy to provide you what you want. You just showed up at the wrong place at the wrong time. Next year, when you're all fucked up, come on back, I mean, because you might be really ripped and be really hurt, like really shredded, really hurt, and I'm still going to be here, and I'm still going to be happy to be of service.
Did you get yourself to the point where you were all fucked up at one point, and that's why you're like, okay, this is all a good idea?
Yeah, so
let's take a break, and we'll come back. I want to hear about how John fucked himself up.
Oh, man.
Over the last year, I've used clubs, maces, and a few other tools that I've gotten from Onnit. My shoulders feel better, my hips feel better, my body feels stronger in all the planes and directions that they weren't before. If you want to check these out, go over to barbellshrugged.com/Onnit, and you'll get 10% off when you buy something, but you need to use that link.
Hey everybody, Marcus Guerzi, co-host of the Barbell Business Podcast. If you're a gym owner who's looking to fix, build, or just take your gym from good to great, tune in every Tuesday to the Barbell Business Podcast. You can find us on iTunes and anywhere else you can download a podcast, or you can watch the video version on YouTube on the Barbell Shrugged channel. Tune in to find Doug, myself, and Mike Bledsoe talking about the latest tips and tricks to take your business to the next level. We'll see you Tuesday.
We're back with John Wolf. How'd you fuck yourself up?
Oh, man. All right, are we specifically talking about training?
How much time you got, brother?
Which area of life are you talking about?
Yeah.
It was really
We'll
fun.
save the other one for the Bledsoe show.
Yeah, which I think I probably shared there already.
I think so.
So, when I was really young, I was in an auto accident, and this is back before car seats or seat belts were mandatory. So I used to ride the little center console so I could see over the seat, boom, hit the windshield. And I remember doing that and like sitting down like, oh, Grandma, am I in trouble? I broke your window, But then I didn't realize I was a hard-headed little kid. I used to fall all over the place, right? But then I didn't realize until I was in my 20s, I got some film shot and realized like there's likely compression fractures that I experienced in my cervical and thoracic spine from that incident. It could have been from other stuff too, but this is the most traumatic thing I can remember at an early age. And then everything, man, my neck and my back quite literally looks like it's like stage 2 degeneration. It looks like a 70-year-old person's spine.
Oh shit.
And so I took on like powerlifting, bodybuilding.
And how old were you?
I was like 2 at the time, or 3.
Oh.
Yeah, I was like really young.
Well, damn.
And so
when you had the car accident?
yeah. I was,
okay.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, I was just like this little kid sitting on the center console in the Oldsmobile, and boom, boom.
Nobody had a seatbelt back then, you know.
I mean, you
got the
guys
mom-
might
you
remember
got the
doing
mom
that
arm.
too. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, yeah,
the brakes hit. Like,
Brakes hit.
Oh,
No, there you go.
I got you.
yeah. So it's, in today's day and age, that sounds preposterous.
Yeah.
How are you gonna let your kid do that? But I mean, that was just normal. We were riding land boats, back then. It was like, oh, we're safe.
Those cars were awesome.
They're
Those
huge.
big ones. Oh,
Big Oldsmobile.
I had a '69 Ford Galaxy. Do you
I don't even know what that
Oh
is,
my
man.
God. Google that shit. that was my first car.
I like the year.
Yeah.
I'm fond of that. Yeah. It's a good year.
It was a boat. Yeah, for sure. I could put 9 people on it comfortably.
Man.
2 bench seats.
And then in the trunk, you could probably load a whole bunch of people,
Oh,
too.
yeah. All sorts of stuff. Some Scarface shit.
Yeah.
Not much has changed.
Yeah, this is, same perspective, just a different car.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah, so I just didn't realize that, so I was doing judo and martial arts when I was young, and I'd always have these neck issues. And then I got into chiropractic when I was young, but it just never really did anything that good. I was still fucked up, even as a young martial artist. And so I got older, I started getting into bodybuilding and then powerlifting, and I started getting the loads pretty high. And I just noticed my neck and my mid-back not only were locked up, but they were like seized up. They weren't just tight. They're like the joints were like screaming,
stuck.
Yeah, they're stuck. And so I got some film, shot this one car, had me put my chin on my chest, and then shot the film from the side.
It's an X-ray.
And and then so my C-spine was like T2 slid off of T3 like this to do it, because it was just so locked up, and then it hinged off like so. And I'm like, oh shit, my head is
That's not
literally
normal.
hanging off my by a ligament. It had like And so we went through a cycle of trying to address that, and then that's when I realized, like, okay, I was already starting to do some mobility stuff, but I really dove in. I already had the toolkit, but I was just like everybody else. I wasn't fucked up enough to really put enough energy into it so that it was really countering everything else I was doing. And then
How old were you when you had this? When you learned this?
I was like in my late 20s.
Okay.
Yeah.
And you were already training and doing powerlifting by this time.
Yeah, exactly. And so it wasn't like I was doing bad training. It was just that the training wasn't conducive to what it was that my biggest issues were. And I had no way of assessing that accurately and even being aware until it was already a big problem. And I think that's why people come and seek out a lot of coaches that might, or clinicians that obviously are going to be qualified to help unwind that process, turn the clock back through a daily practice. And of course, that person has to take ownership of their own well-being as well. But yeah, so through that, now I can do a whole bunch of I'm a bigger dude, and I can do a whole bunch of crazy shit all over the ground and move, and people will be like, well, you're going to fuck yourself up. You're like, no, actually, I do this so I'm not fucked up.
Yeah.
And so now, that's kind of the opposite side of the spectrum there.
What are some things that you did, or that you do?
Well, it's kind of the same stuff we were talking about, that conscious movement practice, and then there was obviously some help from some really good clinicians at the same time. It was just chiropractic and the daily mobility practice, and then moving away from super maximal loaded training. Actually, I went away. So say like at that time I was pulling raw, 505. And I probably could have fought for more, but I'm really meticulous about my technique. Like I really want to maintain like a nice strong spinal position, right? And so I stopped, and then so for years I didn't pick up a barbell that at all, really, because in my studio we only had kettlebells as the heavier loaded implements.
Mm-hmm.
It only went for 70 pounds. And one day I went to this CrossFit fundraiser, and the first event was work up to max deadlift, and it was like, this is cool. I was like, oh man,
Did your eyes burn watching some of those?
nah, no judgment, man. It was all for a good cause too,
Sometimes
But there was a lot of like, right. But at the same time, it was like I just was trying to get in where I fit in, because I was, in a new waters. I was like, man, I'd never been to a CrossFit box. I certainly never did it in this format. So I was just trying to like, hey, what are you guys doing? Because they had different groups doing different, like an A group that's trying to go really heavy, and a B group that was kind of going moderately heavy, and relative to them, it's heavy for them, right? They know where their window of opportunity is to hit their max. And so I was like, I went over to like the D group, like, hey guys, what are you guys going to go for? Like, we're going to work up to high 200s. Like, okay, no problem, I could do that. Went up, and I ended up with this huge behemoth of a dude, right? And so, I'm like, hello, sir, please don't eat me, but can I work in with you? And it was just like he and I, just the two of us, and we started where a lot of people were trying to max, and then worked up. And I'm like, so what are you going to go for? He's like, I want to go for like 520. I'm going to try PR today. I'm like, okay, I haven't deadlifted in a long time, but I still feel strong and I feel capable. So we worked up, and I hit 505 that day, and a lot of the guys were like, "No, you could put 10 more on." I'm like, "No, I'm great. I just hit my old PR. I hadn't deadlifted for literally 3 years, anything other than a 70-pound kettlebell, and so I just realized, like, oh, okay, this practice." And I got stiff after that a little bit, like
Sure, for sure.
The first time I got had that much weight on my structure at all, pulling against my structure, but I didn't have any negative tension. It was just like my mid back and my traps got fired up a little bit, but I was able to dispel that tension and really fast. And so it really tripped me out to like give up something I valued so much for this other practice that was more therapeutic, and then to come back and realize that, maybe I lost a little bit, but as far as what I was able to achieve before and now, as far as the number, it matched up.
Sure. And then
sounds like you feel better.
You feel better too.
I felt better. It's the same thing you were saying, Mike. Like, it was really impressive to me that I was able to hit the number, but I really didn't care. If it was 475, I still would have been really happy.
Yeah.
As long as I wasn't fucked up after.
How much of that are you doing these days? Like, how much like kind of more traditional strength training are you doing? Just basic pull-ups and in front squats and pushing prowlers and running sprints.
Yeah, I like doing all of it, but it's never, like I'm never gonna do like, it's not my nature either, like German volume training or like it's not my. I require a lot of movement variability for just the way I'm wired and for me to stay engaged. So, like, I typically love having like 10 to 15 minutes of really concentrated strength work, and I can scale up if I want to concentrate on deadlifts for 4 to 6 weeks. Yeah, I might deadlift 3 to 4 times a week, but that's just the strength part of a holistic, holistic program.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And
so actually, that said, how do you break up a single training session? Like, do you have it like in blocks where it's like you warm up, then you mobility work, and then you do strength stuff, and then there's conditioning or something along those lines? Like, how do you structure a workout usually? Yeah,
so depending upon the goal of the day, but the most basic workout, the format that we teach in our foundations course that I was talking about, is this multi-step approach, right? And so we're going to look at our strength skill, primary strength skill. What are we going to invest the most in? So like what I'd say is, well, especially if you're kind of early into programming, even workout programming, you have to focus on something. So if you don't focus on something, if you're not committed to one thing or at least one or two things, you're really not focused on anything. You're just kind of throwing shit on the wall, right? So whatever that is, let's just focus on one thing and let that decision drive a lot of the supplemental decisions around that. So if I have a primary move, say we're talking about the deadlift, I know it's a hinge pattern. I'm going to prime that pattern and focus on what other rotary movements around that pattern might I be deficient in that day, because a lot of stuff hides in rotations. So hip rotation, some spinal rotation to see where things are kind of gunked up. So our general mobility would be kind of like a full body, joint circles, unloaded stuff, kind of having this dialogue. Might spend 10 minutes doing that and getting a nice little like blood flow kind of self-assessment. Then I get on the ground and we might do like some series of ground-based crawling or activation drills like isometrics to reinforce positional awareness and strength on things that I might feel like, oh, this is going to really help stabilize my structure. Then after that, I might do some like a neural charge, like maybe some like a twitchy movement, like a med ball throw. If I feel like I need to like up ramp my nervous system still, like even if the static stuff was good to build some awareness and tension, but I still like feel like groggy. I might do some plyos or some jumps or some sprints or some med ball throws just to get that nervous system charged up, and then go do my strength work. After that, I do some supplemental conditioning. So if the really heavy hinge, I don't need to do more hinging because I should get as much as I could out of that. I'm going to get diminished returns if I continue loading that pattern. So I'm going to do stuff that's complementary, some squatting, some pushing, some pulling, maybe some rotary movements to unwind some of the tension I built in that bilateral stance, right? And so after the conditioning, we do some posturing. So it's a lot of reverse posturing. So like wherever I'm loaded, say again, we're looking at that hinge, I'm in this flexed hip position. One of the things I'm going to do is unload that position, really provide a functional opposite of the loaded position. So I'm going to extend those hips bilaterally, ideally, bilateral flexion, bilateral hip extension, but I'm not going to stop there. I'm going to really work on trying to, again, unwind through a lot of things that, again, we're hosting this course, the functional range conditioning course. I quote a lot of other people because, again, I integrate a lot of stuff, so I'm never afraid of saying, like, man, this stuff that they're doing is really awesome. And so, like, I get only, like, 5-10 minutes to really decompress the body and get the most out of it. So we do a lot of, like, active isometrics in kind of yoga-ish postures. So, like, say I'm in a pigeon pose. Instead of just waiting
at the end.
Yeah. Instead of just waiting there, I'm going to build tension against the ground. Use that ground reactive force and really fire off those hips and do some PNF in a couple cycles and get the most out of it because I only allocated so much time in that training. So that's it. So in an hour, I'm going through that process, and that's what I'm saying. Like I can still do all that, the strength work or the condition work, the prowlers, but I might only allocate so much of it because I have more of a holistic framework and goal that for me, and what we generally condone and empower people to utilize that framework for themselves. Because experiential model training, it's like scoring with the girl for the first time. You might only get this one chance. So, so I want to try to give the most the most complete experience.
Make the most of it.
Yeah.
We were all lost until you said that. We were all like, oh, I get it. Okay.
So you're building a lot of like balance into your training, like training, different movement patterns or opposing movement patterns, basically.
Yeah, because longevity being the focus for me.
You don't want to get too far in one direction.
I can get a lot more adaptation short term if I didn't have this balanced approach, but I also will get a lot of unwanted adaptation along with the wanted adaptation. And that's kind of the balancing act, right? So what I find a lot of times is it doesn't seem like it'd be very efficient in terms of like how fast someone would adapt, but it tends to be pretty efficient if it's well thought out. There's a little tweaks here and there, and a lot of times I'm not seeing that the people that implement that are necessarily. It's hard to gauge because they're not doing the other, But against other people who are training in 4 to 6 weeks in, whatever their sacrifices is starting to hold them back.
Yeah,
you know what I'm saying? They don't know it yet, but there's something that they're doing that is overloading the pattern, overloading the structure.
Yeah, like for weightlifters, like if you get too strong, like weightlifters are really quad dominant. Like they don't ever hardly pull or they never hardly do any eccentric work, so they're super, super weak. And you get left back because you can get injured or your pull off the ground. If you can't get the bar off the ground, there's no way you can gonna stand up to clean it. So, like not having that balanced approach, like you gotta, if you're gonna be for a specific sport, like you gotta be somewhat in, working towards that the specific needs of that sport. But that doesn't mean you don't have completely neglect like total balance. Yeah,
and that's the thing is, so when we have athletes, we just shift the paradigm.
Yeah.
So if someone's, again, I consider most people who consider themselves athletes weekend warriors. Is still, I would rather approach it from the longevity
Yeah,
side
longevity
first.
standpoint, yeah.
But if you're a professional athlete, then we're going to flip that paradigm. And now it's not purely performance and longevity.
Yeah.
Like, you still have to have that component. We just, instead of it being 65-35 in favor of restorative training mixed in, that's supplemental and complementary to the strength training or the other things that you want to achieve, it becomes more 65% on the performance side. You still have to do the restorative and therapeutic movement practices that we want. And we see that they actually are more efficient in their sport skills as a result of that practice.
Well, it's also probably a time and a place for it, too. You know, like you mentioned earlier about in-season athletes doing more like Maces and club stuff to, you know, keep them healthy during season. You know, that's probably that's probably a better thing to do at that time rather than like before when they're trying to prep up, you know, for the season.
Yeah, and we stay out of the way, you know, like, you know, hey, you guys are trying to develop attributes before the season starts. Awesome.
Yeah.
You're just having a hard time late in the season keeping these guys healthy.
Right.
Let's look at an unconventional approach. And what is unconventional? It's kind of like unconventional warfare. You can go straight at the problem, or you can be a little, you know, you could subvert that and kind of like, let's sneak around and, you know, attack this from a different angle. Well, something that people aren't necessarily looking at. It doesn't make it necessarily less effective. It might be a better way to manage your resources in a variety of different ways. And you know, a lot of wars are won that way. So like unconventional warfare, you know, that's kind of like that.
Did you get any resistance from people with that kind of?
Oh yeah, I mean, you know, you got a lot of people that are not going to buy in, and that's okay. They're just not. We don't want to spend a lot of time trying to convince people of doing things. We're an Onnit and the community of people like you. We work off like attraction principles, right? You know, so like, hey, the people who want it will seek us out and find it. Or they'll seek out other people that are doing similar things and still get the value, because we don't really care where you get it as long as you're getting better.
As long as you're getting it.
Yeah, as long as you're getting it, as long as I'm getting it.
Yeah.
We were just talking about biomechanists last week when we were at Cal State Fullerton. They were talking about they're looking at injury rates and variability in movement. And so I could definitely see where implementing something like clubs and maces in season could add variability of movement in order to keep people healthy longer.
Yeah, and that's what they're teaching in this course. You know, I bring it up again because they're here right now, but a dynamic systems theory. So a squat is a movement pattern, but a squat, you can train a squat 1,000 times. It's never the same squat. The muscles fire off in different sequences, and your body's adjusting to so many different variables: temperature, wind, noise. Like, there's any of those things change.
Rotation of the earth.
Exactly.
Where are you in relation to the equator?
Well, you know, the thing is, subperceptually, those things are being accounted for to some degree by things that are smart. You know, your body is accounting for these things in ways that your mind can't, right? You know, proprioceptive senses and things like that, mechanoreceptors in your feet, all these things you're not thinking about are happening and influencing how you move. And then, like you were talking about, you know, people talking about injury rates and movement variability. But when you talk about movement variability, you're also talking about pain science. So even if people are injured, but there's a lot of times they're finding people are in pain. It's not even mechanical. It's not even structural a lot of times. Sometimes it's just the movement map is off, and so it doesn't make sense when you look at the hardware, but the way that the body's seeing itself is out of whack. So movement variability and neuroplasticity, so the way you change the way you move, you change the way you think. I find that when people say something simple like this, people live in this world. Yeah. So this is the realm that they own. Remember, like, you're in my space. How much space does a desk worker own? The space in front of their face, and they're crunched over it, right? So it's a small little area where you like,
I own the whole room.
Yeah, that's what I'm trying to say. I want to own the whole room. And so when we start having these big movement practices, I'm moving through this range. Now, my body is aware of all this space. Like, I want all this space. All this shit is mine. Yeah. Right? Because all this is a potential range that I might move in at any given moment. So you find that people will start becoming more aware of self, more aware of space, spatial awareness, time awareness. It's amazing what innocent movement practices can do to benefit people, not only physiologically, but psychologically, mentally as well. That changes the way they think about themselves in relation to everything. Yeah. Yeah. So anyway, I could get really poo-poo. Let's get back on the serious training shit.
Well, I was gonna ask.
I'm over here thinking about you gotta get elevate beyond time and space.
Yeah.
So that once you get outside of time and space, then you can see it for what it really is.
Yeah. That's some
illusion.
Schmockenberger shit.
Well, I was gonna ask you about. So you have the different tools. You have the clubs, the maces. Are there any kind of like unique advantages, disadvantages over using one or the other, or like what kind of scenarios do you use them for?
Alex always trying to get practical information.
I love that. And you know what the thing about it is like we teach each tool to be able to do a lot. So like, you can use a club as a strength tool. You can use a rope as a strength tool. But is it the ideal strength tool? And that's where it depends on what's available, right?
Yeah.
But at the same time, we also have to celebrate. It's like I'm a short, stocky dude. I'm probably not going to be a center in the NBA, right? So you have to recognize the inherent nature of the tools. And so our education kind of does that. So when you talk about, well, what's the benefit? So we create a theme around the tool. So like say our durability course is all the restorative movement stuff, practice, which, by the way, is probably harder for most strength athletes than moving any external load because they're working against their own body, right? And gravity. So our theme for that is resilience in recovery. Right, and so then we have, say, the club. The club you're swinging. Remember this space right here? So if I extend another lever and I extend the length of my arm, now I own more space. So it's kind of like weaponry. Like every foot you extend your reach, you extend your kill zone by X number amount, right? So you're not trying to hurt anybody with clubs. In fact, our theme is a vortex of vitality. # vortex of vitality. So you're swinging this stuff. You become so tuned in, but like energetically, you can argue like circles and like figure eights and rotary moves. It's almost like if you look at a generator, right? You're generating more neural energy, nervous system energy through this practice. It is like an upcharge. The mace, because you're in a closed configuration, 2 hands on one tool, and say like you lock in, we even really focus on pulling that mace apart, like bending the bar, and that offset load is instant education and a push-pull. You don't have to think about it. It teaches you right away.
I've been enjoying front squats,
right?
With the mace.
And it doesn't have to be that heavy.
Here, boom. It doesn't have to be that heavy. My back is just lit up.
Yeah.
That means you're doing it right.
Yeah.
And so what we say there is a # revel in rotation. So like revel, like celebrate it, because all of a sudden this rotary input, you're controlling this because like I don't want to be like here.
Yeah.
Because the weight's pulling me. I want to boom, lock it in. I loan this line. And now even though it looks like nothing's happening externally inside of my body, I'm accounting for external rotational load anytime I'm controlling that object.
Yeah. And I saw the girl over there. She was training a guy, and she was going into like reverse lunges and all this kind of stuff. I mean, it seems like, even though you've got the tool, you could still move in all the familiar ways that we typically move, in the gym, like doing the front squat.
Yeah.
Yeah. So what you might have seen is she was hit some landmarks, some positional awareness. So we always say, anybody do jiu-jitsu before? Yeah.
Sure.
What about position before?
That's what's done a lot in jiu-jitsu as well.
Position before?
Submission,
right, is a popular jiu-jitsu term. So we borrow a lot of times. So like slow is smooth is
fast.
All right. So we use these terms, but we'll change them. So position before transition. All right. Slow is smooth is
so you're
strong.
talking about like,
Beautiful.
So you talk about
Beautiful. Yeah. Look at that. Nice.
when you say
I've been in
position,
a
when you say position, are you talking about holding the tool or
and body position? So
Right.
so before I train a position, I would need to know that you own a position. And
own your position?
Yeah, own the ground you fucking stand on, right? And so like, why am I going to put you in a reverse lunge position with under load when I don't even know if you can be in that position with stability? So we always go static to fluid to dynamic. So these are really simple, but it's very logical. Like, right. So I want to know that you own the end ranges of the position or where your end ranges are before I ask you to do more than you mechanically can. And then we want to work in fluid. So static to fluid. And fluid is like strength, like eccentric focus, like how smooth can you make this transition? Depending upon the tool, it might need to be at a certain tempo, like a club swing. But a lot of times I want to be able to say like, well, I want to own that full range, right? And then we'll go into dynamic, where most people, like if it's application specific, say weightlifting, it gets dynamic really fast a lot of times, right? But good coaches will break it down and scale it up and break it down.
Exactly.
And so that's what we're just saying, the same things any any sound coach does, maybe intuitively, but we're just telling people that this is how you coach people.
Yeah.
Because it works. And I'm really a lazy coach. So if I say these things and they're like the framework that everybody operates in, I'll just go, hey, remember? If they're having a hard time with a dynamic skill, see if they can fluidly move through that same range. Oh, they don't even do that. No, I find the position that they're not comfortable in and make them train that position. And then let's plug that position back into the fluid approach. Oh, they have it. Okay, now we can start building a more dynamic outcome.
So say I wanted to like incorporate, maces and clubs into my training. Like,
hell yeah.
But I didn't know like how to do that, or I didn't know any progressions. I'm just a total newbie. Like, how would I get started? I know you guys
the heaviest equipment possible.
yeah. Go as heavy as possible and do the most complicated movement you possibly can.
Get an audience.
Get on Instagram.
Make sure it's on
Make sure it's on Instagram.
And then swing it as hard as you possibly can.
And bust your head open. That's the number one.
You know, it's sad to say that's exactly what most people want to do, right? But and I'll tell you what. Remember I told you, like, hey, it's been this amazing journey to get where we are right now. The next part of the journey and what we felt out, we haven't supported the end user that doesn't make themselves available to come to the events as well as we should. So we put out some info product stuff, but it was really more geared towards our coaches and using the coaches to be out there and making sure they're well educated on how scale people up and down.
Yeah.
But it wasn't an experiential model. We'll be doing a lot of info product development that's geared towards brand new users.
Yeah.
Like a membership site with videos.
Exactly. There's actually potentially a really cool platform that will be developed in-house to deliver that kind of stuff. And so it's just a matter of time. So developing new stuff, as you guys know, takes time. And so I have a whole bunch of stuff in the hopper, but
I heard that's true.
yeah. Yeah, you guys have been developing some pretty cool software and applications of your own. So I know there's years behind a lot of that stuff.
What other kind of unconventional tools are you like? You got the clubs and maces. Are you looking at anything? Because I know like Onnit, well, at least with the clubs and maces, I haven't seen, like, y'all are pretty much the main people I'm seeing using them. Like, for the most part. I'm sure it's been around for a while, but y'all are making it very mainstream. Is there any kind of other tools that are coming out, like on the edge, on the cusp?
Yeah.
You can't talk about it?
No. I mean, okay, so I can kind of say, okay, so our foundational body work is the body weight stuff that we talked about to suspension, which is a regressive and progressive tool, which is not the unconventional, really, but just the way we approach it is on this platform,
Maybe by suspension.
So gym rings.
Gotcha.
But we take a wooden gym ring, like the high-end Rogue rings that they have, but we put a foothold in it so you can use it more like a suspension trainer versus just a gymnastics ring implement, because that was the big limitation with wooden rings. I loved wooden rings, but then if you wanted to do like plank work, it wasn't ideal. They were far from ideal for what you'd see a lot of TRX or jungle gym users using them for. So suspension to sandbag, which is a really safe tool. You want to drop a sandbag on you. It doesn't really hurt.
Sandbag's something I every time I see one, I go, fuck, I need more. I need these at my house, and I just.
Yeah, you could drop them on your floor at home.
Soon,
we'll get you somewhere here, on the way out. You just fill them up at home, so it's easy to take home.
There's some
sandbags for everybody. Yeah. But it's just great because, say, like, someone's afraid of, even a kettlebell can be scary for a new user. They get banged up, they don't know what they're doing, then they get distracted by pain. And with sandbags, you could drop it on your head. I wouldn't advise it. You might get a crick in your neck, but you're probably not going to go to the hospital, right? And you can drop it on your foot, and it won't matter. You can drop it on the floor; it won't damage anything. So it really opens the door to like a safe approach to strength training, and even getting into more dynamic skills. You can rip it, throw it, and walk away. You can land on the floor. It's not going to do anything. Maybe bust open at the worst, right? Ideally, it wouldn't. It depends on how good your sandbag is. From sandbag, we'll go into a battle rope. The battle rope. If you guys had Aaron on the show, if you give that guy a couple of days of battle rope, you're like, I didn't have any idea what was up with battle ropes. That's what you're like.
In 5 minutes, I was just like, I gotta get a rope.
Yeah.
Because they're way more versatile than I thought it was going to be.
Yeah.
If you're listening to this, we already did a show with Aaron. Watch the videos.
Amazing. The dude's he's got years in the trenches with that tool. Like he's kind of it takes a certain kind of crazy to love kettlebell sport and to love
Right.
battle rope training, and he loves both
That's
of those
true.
things.
Those are very lactic things.
Yeah, it's like cyclists or long distance runners competitive. They have to have the crazy
They
switch.
be a little bit crazy.
Yeah,
a little bit crazy.
more than a little bit.
Yeah.
yeah.
A lot crazy. Yeah.
Yeah, like so then so from the battle ropes we go into kettlebells. So we started looking. Okay, now we need a little more technicality in the approach that we're going to say like sandbags, suspension. We can scale up and down really easy. We're gonna make it really easy. We're gonna make it really hard.
Yeah.
The sandbag is a really safe strength tool. Then the battle rope, you're mostly concentric work. You know, you're not really you're going to focus on like sleds. You can make someone work really hard on the sleds. It's not.
It's not gonna beat them up. Yeah.
Not nearly as bad as something that's primarily eccentric, like
Right,
you're saying,
sure.
right?
Right.
And then the kettlebells. Then the kettlebells go to the club, which makes it a lot more technical. And then we do the mace because we push them a little hard in that course. But we just got to give everybody all those tools. Now, what's new? What's coming up? More of the same, but cooler versions. So see like the Marvel stuff.
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah.
We may or may not have another cool licensing deal.
Talk about I don't know if people know about, it, but you guys I saw this when y'all launched it. Like y'all made like Captain America, like bumper plates and all that kind of stuff. Yeah, it was really cool.
Iron Man kettlebell.
Yeah.
I don't know. Maybe there's new Marvel movies coming up. I don't know if we have anything.
Just
going
don't make
on.
one off
I don't know.
Ant-Man.
What's that?
Don't make one off Ant-Man.
Dude. The next thing is the Ant-Man kettlebell, man. No. I'm just kidding.
Sandbag looks just like an ant.
I'm just
like
kidding. But
shrinks up.
But yeah, we have some other innovative tools coming out in the near future. I'm constantly in development. There's some stuff. Landmine training, so a barbell course that kind of respects everything that is in barbell, but also looks at, well, how can you use a barbell differently, not to displace what's already out there, but to complement that and give you new perspective on ways you can vary what's already, the gold standard of what you would do with strength training.
Yeah.
And so with that, you have offset load stuff there too with landmine training, right?
Yeah.
So there's some stuff there. That's not necessarily innovative per se, but then we have some variable resistance tools in terms of dynamic variable resistance, like water.
Yeah.
And so there's some cool products that will be incorporating water as resistance. So I can't really disclose exactly what that is, but there's going to be some cool stuff. I'm trying, man. But that product is going to be awesome because the person who designed it is a friend of mine. He's an inventor. They're actually using this tool for a really great global cause as well, the transportation of water for indigenous people in villages. So there's it's going to be used for fitness purposes, but a variation of the same thing is going to be used to help people, because a lot of problems is a lot of these places they'll have a source of water, but it's 5 miles away, and then these little kids are carrying buckets of water for miles and not going to school because the inefficiency of getting water to their home, and you're not plumbing would be ideal, but in interim they need a better solution what they currently have. So that's about as much as I can share right now, but it'll be cool. And again, transportability for that tool is extremely high, because sand is not always easy to source. You don't want to put beach sand. You might not have a beach, but you got a water faucet in every hotel you go to. So
I think I made. Yeah, I'm gonna see where you're going. Yeah.
All right.
And of course, you guys are all about integrating it with, different types of training. So
Yeah.
Awesome. John, thanks for joining us today. Where can people find out more about what Onnit's doing with the unconventional training?
Right now we got all the education team posting regularly on Instagram on a rotation. So if you get tired of me, you don't got to worry about it. You only see me once every 8 days. You get to see all the other educators and what they're doing at the Onnit Academy Instagram channel. Of course, check out Onnit.com. You get a better understanding of the broad the reach that the brand is the different sandboxes we're all playing in. But OnnitAcademy.com is where we do a lot of provide a lot of information about lifestyle as well as the fitness practices. So check us out anywhere on those. And if you want to catch up with me, CoachJohnWolf.com. I would have had just John Wolf, but someone already had it. So,
Son of a bitch.
I know, damn it. So
Did you ever get in contact with him? Like, hey, dude, like, come on. I need your domain.
He already has an established website. So I was like, okay, so now the website says Coach John Wolf, the Instagram. So I try to keep it uniform. But
Well, that's better, too, Coach,
Yeah, I guess no matter what I do, I'll always be a coach. That's kind of the deal. So I'm happy with it.
Master John Wolf.
Yeah, I was like, I had the John Wolf. I'm like, that doesn't sound
douchey.
Cool. Yeah, it sounds douchey. I was like, okay, I'm a coach.
Like, I'm not verified on Twitter, like, whatever.
Yeah. Anyways, come check us out. Check out the through that Instagram channel on the Onnit Academy Instagram. You'll be able to develop a relationship with any of those coaches. And like I said, and if any of those things interest you, then follow down that path. You might find out a lot, and no matter what you're learning, you'll be able to tie it back to the common principles of the whole system. And if you find you want to go deeper, then hey, we're all here.
Awesome.
Right on.
Cool. Thanks for joining us, John.
Thanks, man.
Thanks for having us.
Thanks for being here, guys.
Sure, dude.